anyone who watches my videos knows that I skew more to the American side of things than the Euro side of things. It's not that I don't like Euro games, it's just they don't really fit with my life at the moment. They tend to be brain intensive and long, and the depth of strategy and the interest there is fantastic, if you've got the brain power and time to spare. The thing is that I'm not really very good at quick mental arithmetic. I'm not very good at games where it's about economy and numbers. But I do like the sense of satisfaction and the feeling that you've achieved something, and the ability of a game to sink its hooks into you so that when you stop playing you think, I could have done that better. Sometimes you'll be sat there just thinking about playing that game. And when a game does that, when a game really clicks with you, it's something special. Now, I know I'm kind of giving away a bit of the review, but really let's look at the positives and negatives of Glass Road. The genius about Glass Road is it gives you the toolkit to play the game in a very clever way. It allows you to think about everything and work out your own path to victory. But the real thing that makes it shine is it gives you only 4 turns to actually do this. This is really cool because, I mean, in some games it'd be a problem. The game really does kick you in the teeth if you make a mistake, but with the game running so short, you don't really mind. If it was like a 3-hour game and you're playing 2 hours of it knowing you're on a loser, that's no good. But with Glass Road, the fact that it's short and sweet and, you know, really you don't lose track of time, that's why it works. So each round you're going to be choosing a hand of 5 cards out of a pool of 15. Everybody's got the same cards. Each one of the cards allows you to do a different thing. They all represent different professions, different people you can call on to do a job. Some of which will require you like cutting down forests, and some will spend resources to do other things. Some of them allow you to build stuff or turn one resource into another. The general gist of the game is with this hand of 5 cards each round for the 4 rounds, you get to play 3 of them. And that's 3 cards out of 5 you choose to play. Now, if somebody else plays a card and it's in your hand, you get to piggyback off theirs. It's really, really clever. So when you're building your hand of cards, you've not just got to look at what do I want to do in a turn. You've got to look at what is everybody else going to do and what do I think I can put in my hand so that when they play it, I get to play it as well. There's a nice sense of interaction. You're looking at what other people are doing, what you think they're working towards points-wise, what resources they need and which cards might provide those. You're really having to take in everybody else at the table's game. And that really involves you with the other players. There's no element of multiplayer solitaire in this one. That said, you are developing your own little board. You've got like a little tableau of forests and sandpits and ponds and groves. And that changes as the board goes on, as the game goes on. It's a really nice visual. I love the way that forests are chopped down and different landscapes and buildings pop up. I absolutely adore it when you do something in a game, it's physically represented. So what's the actual point of the game? Well, you score points for creating glass, bricks and quartz sand. But that's not all, because it's quite an open game. It gives you a toolkit to explore your options and to make your own way to victory. This is mostly done through the buildings that are available. Some of them score you points when you build them. Some of them give you a bonus condition that you work towards. And that's really, really clever, because it means that with like 90-something buildings in the game, different ones come out each time, you get a different game each time, and sometimes you'll be competing to try and get one building first, and sometimes you'll find things where the abilities stack and you can go, oh, if I buy this and this, then I can work towards this sort of victory. It feels very interesting and very open. It feels like you really have to sort of make your own way, forge your own path. And again, you're doing this in 4 turns. I mean, that's really, really good. The downside to this, unfortunately, is that it can feel daunting. Sometimes when you look at the spread of buildings laid out, you kind of look and go, I don't know where my points are coming from. You can't see a way to victory, which can be a bit strange, especially if you're new to the game and experienced players are kind of going, oh, I could build this and build that and build that. But sometimes you, in such a short, limited game, you kind of think, well, I just don't know where to start. I mean, that is one of the few negatives of this game, is this kind of sometimes this stumbling block where you're trying to work out, you know, where do my points come from, and by the time you've figured it out, it's too late to make the most of them. I don't think it's a failing with the game. I just think that some games are harder than others, and that seems to be borne out in the scores. Sometimes the scores just generally are higher or lower, depending on what's actually given at the start of the game for the buildings you're allowed to take. So, I mean, a typical score's around sort of 20 odd in this game. It's not a high scoring game. And I've played it solo, which is actually a very, very good solo game. It gives you a real sort of sense of achievement, and once you've set it up, you can play it 2 or 3 times in a row quite fast. I've played the 2-player game, which is messes with the rules a bit. It feels quite tactical. I've played fast games of it as well, like speed games of it, and it works. I've played 3 and 4 players, and the only time the game suffers is when somebody's taking too long thinking about things. You know, when they're building their hand of 5 cards out of the 15 and they take forever. You know, it can kind of grind a bit, but that's entirely player dependent. I mean, the main thing that really shines for me in Glass Road is that it gives you a real sense that what you're doing is what you want to do. It doesn't feel like you're kind of, oh, well, I wanted to do that, but I'm going to have to make the best of what I've got. The other thing it does very nicely is it handles your resources for you in a way. There's a kind of a very rudimentary calculator built into the game. So rather than taking cubes and cashing them in and taking 5 and giving 4 back and, you know, that sort of thing, or exchanging X for Y, when you gain resources, they go on a dial. You have 2 dials, one's your glass works and one's your brick works. So when you gain resources, you go up on the dial. If you gain enough resources that it leaves a gap in front of the dial's finger, it'll tick forwards. So automatically it'll convert what you've got into glass or bricks. So as you're going, you've got to be mindful that you may be gaining, say, you know, 4 charcoal, but you might actually only be gaining 2 charcoal because the rest gets turned into bricks. But the whole way it works, the way that if there's a gap in front of the dial, it ticks forwards, it just does all the kind of number crunching for you and allows you to focus on the game. It's an extremely good system, and it means less moving parts, it means a very quick visual reference, it means no having to flipping faff about when you just, you know, if I get X, it will get me Y. The cards themselves are a really interesting balance. Some of them require you to permanently remove forests, some of them change the landscape, some of them convert goods into other goods. And I find it enormously satisfying picking cards and somebody else playing them, because each card has 2 actions, and if nobody else has that card, you get both. But if somebody else has that card, or if you have a card and somebody else has played it as well, then you both get half an action. You get one of the 2 actions each. And that adds some real sort of thought to what you've got to do. If you're dead set on building something this turn, and you have 1 card in your hand that allows you to build, if somebody else plays it, and it's before you wanted it played, you're stuffed. So you have to think, right, if I'm going to really want to build, I have to have a couple of cards. One of them's got to be one I don't think people will play. You know, it is lovely. It is just a lovely game. It doesn't take much to explain it to people. It flows beautifully. I think you pretty much have to play a game and screw up, and the second game is where it clicks for you. Any other negatives? Well, I don't know really, because it feels like it has a nice theme. An unusual theme, and the rulebook is beautiful. The rulebook tells you everything you need to know, and then goes the extra mile and explains a bit about the history, about the setting of the glassmaking in the Bavarian forests, and oh man, it goes to town. There's a labour of love, I would say, the information that's in the rulebook and the clarity of the rules. I think it may be a bit overwhelming for first-time players who aren't really used to sort of Euro games. I think some Euro gamers might feel it's a little lightweight if they're used to the more heavy economic stuff. Perfect for me though. I think it hits this beautiful balance between amount of decisions made, short time it plays, the feel of being able to be involved in other players' turns, and so it's not just, you know, downtime waiting for the next person and the next person and the next person to play. Everybody is involved at every stage of the game. It feels beautifully balanced. There is one building, the roofing company, that has been errated out because there's an extremely specific set of circumstances that can cause that to become a feedback loop, basically. But it's so rare, and there are so many extra buildings that if you took it out, you wouldn't miss it, and if you left it in, the situation would probably never come up. It's a very tightly made game. The components are lovely, it's beautiful. It took me a long time to punch the pieces out and put everything together, so there's a bit of initial setup to be done. It's not the easiest thing to get hold of right now. I think it's between printings, but I can almost guarantee it's coming back. And I thoroughly, thoroughly recommend that you look into Glass Road if you are interested in Euro games that don't take the rest of your life to play, if you're interested in something which has a bit of a liveliness about it and a bit of interesting interaction. If you're interested in games where you get to build stuff and, like, you know, create your own little landscape, I think that's another big plus. So that's Glass Road, not the first Uwe Rosenberg game I've played. This is a chap who's done Agricola and Caverna and a whole bunch of other games that you may well have played. But for me, it's a Euro game that fits in a perfect little time slot. I can play it on my own of an evening after Seth's gone to bed. I can play it with my wife. I can play it with my games group. It fits in perfectly in almost every aspect of my gaming life. And a bit like Kingdom Builder, I am always happy to play it, and I'm always happy to introduce new people to it. Yeah. Nice big thank you to two people as well. One is Phil for introducing me to this game, and the other is Wendy, who managed to procure me a copy. Thank you very much, guys. Thank you for watching. I hope this has been useful to you, and I will see you next time.